I wondered firstly what NASS is planning to do here at NSpine.
Well, we've given a number of talks. Eric Muehlbauer, our executive director, has given some talks. I've given two and moderated two sessions, predominantly on the NASS registry, and I think probably the most well-attended session was on the resident work hour limitation, the 80-hour work week. And I've just finished a delightful chat with Dr. Max Abbey about the history of spine. So it's been a wonderful meeting.
Oh, I'm glad you're enjoying it so far. As well as your efforts with NSpine, NASS is hugely involved in advocacy in the US and in educating its members. I wondered if you could talk a little bit about your advocacy efforts at the moment and how they're being affected by a lot of political change in the United States.
Oh, I'd be happy to. I'm never at a loss to talk about those. NASS advocacy is very important. We actually are large enough as a society now to the point where we have our own office in Washington as part of a separate corporation, something called a 501c3, which is separate from the educational and academic part of NASS. The advocacy arm is extremely busy. There are fly-ins in Washington continually. There are advocacy updates virtually every week or every day. We've made some significant inroads as far as trying to repeal some restrictive legislation, trying to delay the institution of some of the more restrictive rules that have been imposed by the past administration. And right now, looking at some more global issues of really significant economic reform, including liability reform and some things like that. Now, of course, given the climate in Washington and the inevitability of change, everyone's kind of holding on for the ride right now, but I think we've made some pretty significant progress and will continue to do so. And that, of course, has direct impact on the membership, as you know.
Of course, and it's great to hear that you guys are responding to lots of change at the moment. I also mentioned that you're actively involved in NASS in educating your members. You have a meeting coming up in a few weeks in the summer, and you also have the main meeting in October. I wondered what you're excited about teaching people at those events.
Well, the meetings are fantastic. Summer Spine, which is happening in San Diego at the end of July, is really a fairly new event. It's grown very quickly. We're having a lot of international participation. As you probably know, about 20% of NASS's membership is international, which is something that's very, very exciting for me. The annual meeting is a huge 5-day event where there's literally something for everyone in spine. Many of our members are not surgeons. It's a very comprehensive and inclusive society, so there are educational and academic activities at the annual meeting in October in Orlando, really for people with any interest. We also have a very, very large allied healthcare program for nurses, physician extenders, nurse practitioners, and other people who are intimately involved in spine care, and probably will be more so in the future, particularly in the primary version of spine care. The other aspect of education that I think I have to mention are our online resources. We have numerous webinars on everything from the Sunshine Act and regulatory affairs to appropriate use guidelines, to coverage guidelines. These are all available free on the website, particularly with the coverage guidelines in which Chris Bono, the past president, has been intimately involved. The impact of those has been significant. Payers are looking at them, clinicians are looking at them. Even other societies have asked our permission to use those on their website, which we have gleefully granted because we want as many people to see that material as possible. And my thought for the future is that I think many people who are far younger and more dynamic than I have different learning style. With the virtual learning style, online learning becoming more and more important, we're trying to adapt to that. And I think the philosophy of the organization, the website, reflects that.
Yes, I agree. I've seen a lot of changes with NASS's website recently. And these have happened during your time as president of NASS. And the final thing I wanted to ask you was what you're most proud of so far and what you hope the future presidents will have learned from your experience.
Well, the most proud of, I'm going to give you two answers on that. The first is the fact that NASS continues to not only be a leader, I think, in spine societies, but does it properly. And what I mean by that is I'm extraordinarily proud of the work in ethics that NASS has done, and really assumed a leadership role as far as the appropriate way to manage conflict of interest, the appropriate way to look at relationships with industry. So it truly is a partnership for both industry and the investigator. It's something where both parties have had to learn a little bit, but I'm very, very proud of the way that that's evolved. The second thing that I'm very proud of is the way the international membership has grown. The travels this year have been fairly extensive. I've enjoyed every second of it, and I've always felt that I've come away from every meeting learning far more from my colleagues abroad than they've learned from me. And I mean that in every sense of the word, not only how to deliver care, how to look at evidence, what evidence is appropriate to your circumstance, and how can we learn from each other in the future. Because as I said to one of my colleagues in Abu Dhabi who practices actually in Pakistan, regardless of where you practice, we're all in this together. And we all have a commonality of purpose, which is very gratifying and something that gives me a tremendous amount of satisfaction and pleasure.